In 1970, Soviet scientists began drilling a hole. Not for oil, not for gas, not for anything the world had ever drilled for before. They wanted to go deeper than any human being had ever gone. Deeper than the deepest ocean trench. Deeper than any mine. Deeper than anything. They drilled for 24 years. And then they stopped. Not because they ran out of money. Not because the equipment broke. They stopped because something down there stopped them. What they pulled up from that hole, what they recorded, what they measured, was not supposed to be possible. This is the story of the Kola Superdeep borehole, the deepest hole ever drilled in human history, and what happened when we finally reached a place on this earth no human was ever meant to find. Let's go back to 1970. The Cold War is at its peak. America and Soviet Union are racing each other in every direction possible. Space race, nuclear race, military race. But in 1970, the Soviets opened a new front. In this war, a race to the center of the earth. Now you might be thinking, why would two superpowers care about digging a hole? Here's why. We know more about the surface of Mars than we know about what's beneath our own feet. Think about that for a second. We have sent rovers to another planet. We have mapped craters 140 million miles away. But the ground beneath the city you live in right now, 3 miles down, complete mystery. Scientists in 1970 genuinely did not know what the Earth's crust was made of. Not really. Not from direct evidence. Everything they knew was theoretical. Seismic data, mathematical models, educated guesses dressed up as science. The Soviets decided to end the guessing. They chose a location on the Kola Peninsula, a remote frozen stretch of land, in the far northwest of Russia, above the Arctic Circle, where the temperature drops to -40, and the sun disappears for months at a time. Why there? Because the crust is thinner there. Ancient rock, stable, old, billions of years old. The perfect place to drill. Into the oldest skin of the planet. They called it Skvazhina Zhetri, Kola Superdeep Borehole, Project SG-3. And on May 24, 1970, they began to drill. Now let me explain what kind of drilling we're actually talking about here. Because this was not a man with a shovel. This was not a mining operation. This was the most sophisticated drilling project in human history. The drill itself, a slender tube barely 9 inches wide. 9 inches, that's about the width of a standard dinner plate. And they were going to push it through solid rock for kilometers. The technique they used was called rotary drilling. The drill bit spins continuously, chewing through ancient Precambrian rock that had not been touched since before complex life existed on Earth. The first few kilometers were relatively straightforward. Slow, methodical, expensive, but manageable. By 1979, 9 years in, they had reached 9.5 kilometers. That's deeper than Mount Everest is tall. Let that sit for a moment. Everest, the highest point on Earth's surface, 8.8 kilometers above sea level. These men had gone deeper, in the opposite direction. Then Everest goes up, and they were not finished. In 1983, they hit 12 kilometers, a world record, the deepest hole ever drilled. In the history of human civilization, there were celebrations. Soviet scientists declared victory over the Americans, who had abandoned their own deep drilling project. Project Borehole, years earlier. The Americans had given up. The Soviets kept going. But here is where the story changes. Here is where the hole starts giving things back. Because when you drill that deep, you are not just taking from the Earth. The Earth starts talking back. The first thing that surprised them was the temperature. Every scientist on the project had run the calculations. They knew temperature increases as you go deeper. Geothermal gradient, basic geology. Their models predicted that at 12 kilometers, the temperature would be around 100 degrees Celsius. Hot, but manageable. Equipment could handle it. The actual temperature at 12 kilometers, 180 degrees Celsius, almost double what they predicted. The rock down there was not behaving like rock is supposed to behave. At that temperature, under that pressure, the rock was acting more like a plastic, flowing, moving, alive in a way. Solid rock has no business being alive. It was consuming the drill every time they pulled the drill up, and they had to pull it up regularly. To replace the worn bit, the hole would partially close behind it. The Earth was healing itself, sealing the wound they were making. They would drill down, pull up, and find the hole, several meters shorter than they left it. The rock was flowing back in, like the planet was rejecting them. But that was not the strangest thing they pulled up from the hole. The strangest thing was water. At 12 kilometers deep, they found water, flowing water. Mineralite ancient, but water. This should not exist. At that depth, under that pressure, water molecules should be crushed into the surrounding rock. It should be bone dry down there. The scientific consensus, before Kola, was that the deep crust was completely dry. The water they found had been trapped there for billions of years, forced out of the surrounding minerals by the immense pressure, with nowhere to go, collecting in the darkness at the bottom of the world. Water that had never seen sunlight. Water that was older than complex life on Earth. Water from before the dinosaurs, before the fish, before anything with eyes had ever looked at anything. They bottled some of it. They still have it. But the water was not the most disturbing discovery. The most disturbing discovery came from the rock samples themselves. At 9 kilometers, they found fossils, single-celled organisms, microfossils, 24 distinct species of ancient plankton, at 9 kilometers deep, in rock that was 2 billion years old. Life, or what had once been life, deeper inside this planet than anyone had ever imagined life could reach. The boundary between living Earth and dead Earth was nowhere near where science had placed it. It was deeper, much deeper, and this changed everything. Scientists thought they understood about where life can and cannot exist. But then, in 1992, something happened that nobody has ever fully explained. By 1992, the drill was at 12,262 meters, 12.2 kilometers, 7.6 miles straight down, deeper than any human object had ever penetrated the Earth. And the team had a target, 15 kilometers. They believed 15 kilometers was achievable. The equipment, though stressed, was still functioning. The funding was still there. The mission was still active. And then, the drill got stuck. Not jammed, not broken. Stuck, as if something had grabbed it. They pulled, they applied pressure. They used every technique available to free a stuck drill. Nothing worked. When they finally managed to retrieve what was left of the drill, the bottom section was gone, twisted off, sheared clean, left down there, in the hole, at 12 kilometers, in the dark. Now, equipment failures happen in drilling. This is not supernatural. Drills break, pipes snap, things go wrong. But what happened next is what the scientists on the project have never stopped talking about. When they analyzed the data from the instruments on the drill, in the moments before it was lost, the readings were wrong. The density readings of the rock at that depth were completely different from what the models predicted. The rock down there was less dense than it should have been, which meant there were cavities, spaces, voids in the rock. At 12 kilometers depth, empty spaces where solid rock should have been. And the temperature still climbing, still rising beyond every prediction. At the rate it was increasing, 15 kilometers would mean temperatures approaching 300 degrees Celsius. No drill on Earth could survive 300 degrees Celsius. At that pressure, the planet had set a limit. The planet had drawn a line. And when they crossed it, the drill came back in pieces. In 1995, the project was officially abandoned. The hole was capped with a metal seal, a rusted welded cap, on a 9-inch wide tube, going 12 kilometers into the Earth. That cap is still there today, sitting in the ruins of the abandoned facility. On the Kola Peninsula, no fence around it, no warning signs anymore. They rusted away years ago. Just a metal disc, bolted to the ground. The most remarkable hole ever made by human hands, and nobody is allowed to open it. Now I need to address something, because if you search Kola Superdeep Borehole online, you will find a story that spread across the internet in the 1990s and has never fully died. The story goes like this. Before the project was abandoned, scientists lowered a microphone into the borehole, an ultra-sensitive heat-resistant microphone, to record geological sounds, seismic activity, rock movement, the natural acoustics of the deep Earth. And what they recorded was not geological. What they recorded was screaming, human screaming, thousands of voices, screaming in what sounded like agony. The story spread everywhere. Newspapers picked it up. Christian publications ran it as proof of hell. The tape was shared. People swore it was real. And I'm going to be honest with you. The tape was fake. It was fabricated. The Sounds from Hell recording was traced to a manipulated audio file that had been circulating since the early 1990s. The screaming was not real. But here is what is real. And this is the part that nobody talks about. The Kola Borehole DID record sounds, real sounds, geological sounds, and the scientists who worked on the project described those sounds as deeply unsettling, not screaming, but rhythmic, pulsing, like something breathing, at a frequency no living thing should produce. The Earth makes sounds at 12 kilometers. It makes sounds that the rock above it completely absorbs and silences. Sounds that have been down there since before life existed. Whether that disturbs you or fascinates you depends entirely on what you believe is down there. The Kola Superdeep borehole taught us more about this planet in 24 years of drilling than the previous century of geological science. Every major prediction, wrong. Temperature, wrong. Rock density, wrong. Water presence, wrong. Life boundaries, wrong. Everything science was certain about regarding what lies beneath our feet. The Kola hole looked at those certainties and disagreed. And this is the part that I think matters most. We live on this planet. We were born on it. We will die on it. And we genuinely, fundamentally, do not know what it is. Not really. The deepest we have ever gone is 12.2 kilometers. The center of the Earth is 6,371 kilometers away. We have reached 0.19% of the way to the center of the planet we live on. 0.19%. Everything else, every model, every theory, every diagram you saw in school showing the layers of the Earth is a guess, an educated guess, a well-reasoned guess, but a guess. The Kola borehole is the only place on Earth where we have actual physical evidence of what the deep crust looks like. One hole, 9 inches wide, in the entire planet, and it contradicted everything. The Earth is not what we think it is. We just have not gone deep enough to find out what it actually is. And the one time we tried, really tried, the drill came back in pieces, and we sealed the hole, and we walked away. The facility at Kola is abandoned now. The buildings are collapsing, windows broken, roofs caved in, equipment rusting into the Arctic soil. But the hole is still there, still open, still going down, still 12.2 kilometers deep. The metal cap sits on it, welded shut, on a peninsula above the Arctic Circle, where almost nobody goes. And 12 kilometers below that cap, the rock is still moving, still flowing, still sealing the space where the drill used to be. The ancient water is still down there. The fossils are still down there. The heat is still building. The sounds, whatever they actually are still happening. The Earth did not notice that we stopped drilling. It is doing exactly what it has always done, exactly what it was doing before we arrived, and exactly what it will be doing long after we are gone. We drilled the deepest hole in human history. We reached a depth no human object had ever reached. We found water where there should be none, life where life should be impossible, heat that broke our best predictions, rock that moved like it was alive. And then something grabbed our drill, twisted it off at 12 kilometers, and kept it. Maybe that was mechanical failure. Maybe the Earth has a 12-kilometer limit on human curiosity. We sealed the hole in 1995. Nobody has tried to go deeper since. If you made it to the end of this video, you now know more about the deepest hole on Earth than most people will ever know. Subscribe to Eon Vault TV because we are just getting started, going places most people are afraid to look.